Hello, America. Hopper here. As you can see, I am not feeling well. I had to have surgery on my good knee because I had a bad knee and then I had a good knee, and then I tasted a squirrel. I feel funny. Now, it's been brought to my attention that many of you watching on YouTube are not yet Mug Club members. You can join for $99 per year, $69 annually for students or veterans or military. louderwithcrowder.com says Mug Club. And if you don't, they're not gonna fix my knee no more. Cause see, a lot of you watch this video and you go do your job, but for these guys, their only job is making this video. And if they don't have a job no more, they can't take care of Hopper. So if you don't join the Mug Club, I could die.
That's what we call the most muscular pose. In the art of we're getting away from kata this week. In the art of bodybuilding, you build up your body. Arnold Schwarzenegger referred to it as a piece of clay. You mold the clay, and you do this pose on stage eventually in the hopes of posing in a thong for a gay man to give you a little trophy and for you to still be weak. Because it's all steroids and fake. We're going to get some letters. Producing with me in video studio, as always, is Jared, who is not gay. Follow him on Twitter at NotGayJared. Me at SCrowder. I fulfill my legal obligations. Starting conclusions. Are we good?
I was just picking up on kata.
Speaking of non-bodybuilders, at G. Morgan Jr.
Yo.
Oh, look at that.
Yo,
Look
get
at
you
that.
some.
It's going to be like Woody Woodpecker.
Ow, I cramped. Oh my gosh.
Great guests tonight. We have Dave Rubin on the show. Always a lovely little gentleman. Dave Rubin. Then we have Tim Schmidt on the show, president and founder of the United States Concealed Carry Association.
Yeah.
Which will be fun. We'll be talking about the event that we have coming up in Fort Worth, as well as what you can do to make yourself safer as a firearm owner. Lots to get into today. We will. One thing I wanted to talk about today, we'll get in a little bit, is the difference between critical theory and the Socratic Method, which on its surface, if you're not necessarily familiar with either or familiar with both, could sound inconsequential, but it's a very noticeable shift on college campuses and what they're teaching.
Yes.
A lot of them don't teach Socratic Method anymore. A lot of them teach critical theory, and everything that you hate about the modern social justice left stems from this. So we'll get into that. But other news to get into, of course, Supreme Court Justice Neil Gorsuch. Sorry, Google corrected me. Neil Gorsuch
Uygur
today.
Uygur.
You know, there was the
names.
there was the filibuster, and then there was for the first time Republicans invoking the. Well, if you don't know what happened today, let's go to the tail of the tape for Nancy Pelosi's reaction.
Woohoo!
No.
Looks like Ripto's opening a
For
bottle of
those
wine.
asking, we did not have the copyrights to that. That wasn't shot here in the studio.
Great movie.
Not quite there for that budget. Nuclear option dropped. Nuclear bomb. And here's the thing: it's just for a Supreme Court nominee. It's here. You know, people now we'll talk about this with Dave Rubin when they're saying, you know, I can't believe this is unprecedented. Well, this happened. Harry Reid changed the rules on the Supreme Court justice. And by the way, when you have 4 Supreme Court justices voting against the idea that private citizens have the right to own any firearms at all, you kind of lost your leg to stand on when it comes to bitching about either judicial activism or not following precedent.
Yeah. They don't like the guy because he's going to enforce the laws it's written.
That's their knock against him.
That's
Like,
crazy. It's crazy.
You believe in the Constitution.
It's crazy.
I can't believe it. He's got some nerve
Radicals.
on him, Neil.
Yeah.
Something else, big outrage. Not really, but the New York Times accidentally referred to Ivanka Trump as Donald Trump's wife. They had to walk it back.
She's cute. She's really cute. I mean, come on.
Yeah, they not as bad as they've made these mistakes before, where they initially reported Donald Trump's mistress as Steve Bannon. Ooh.
Well,
so that was a
that
problem.
looks weird.
And they were also, these are the same people who, they were bitching about Mike Pence referring to his wife as mom.
Yeah.
Which is an incredibly common, this is when there's a slow news week until the nuke was dropped. This is very common in the South. I don't know. I actually also had a tutor from either Trinidad or Tobago who referred to his wife as mom. There's nothing necessarily new about this, but the leftists want to turn it into a thing as though it's some kind of a slip.
Called it.
By the way, when did we decide that Freud was a great thinker? That's what he's really most famous for, telling people they want to have sex with their mothers.
Pretty much.
I just can't get Viggo Mortensen playing him out of my head. It's just kind of like gross. And
When did he play
terrible-
Sigmund Freud?
Yeah.
Dangerous Mind, Dangerous.
No, Dangerous Minds was Michelle Pfeiffer and the Latinos in the
Coolio.
school who were stabbing each other.
Dangerous Method. That sound right? I don't know.
I have no idea.
Are you having a
I have no
stroke?
idea what you're talking
Yeah.
about.
What is going on?
Well, speaking of which, there are some points where we decide these are great historical thinkers, and they just put this in
Sure.
college courses now. Like this is a great way of thinking, and this brings us to something I really wanted to talk about today: the difference between critical theory and the Socratic Method. Now, for those of you who don't know, if you weren't taught in college, the Socratic Method, I believe, is probably one of the most effective methods to get to ultimate truth that we have available. And the beauty in it is that it's so simple a child can do it. As a matter of fact, it's we'll talk about it. It's very similar to a child simply asking, why?
Yeah.
When you have that kid who won't stop asking, and then you well, hold on a second. Why do I do this? Why do I own a Toyota Tundra? What that was a mistake. Whatever it
Toddler
is.
has me questioning everything.
Why did I purchase that Pinto? That car salesman got the best of me. So Socratic Method is very effective. Now, it's very different from something that's called critical theory, which is taught more and more in colleges, and the Socratic Method is taught less and less. It was developed, first off, in the Frankfurt School to really kind of justify Marxist ideas in the wake of Marxism. I know a lot of people say, "Oh, Frankfurt School doesn't exist; it's like a shadow organization." No, it does. So let's just move on with that. Let's stop. You can hold your comments. But before I get into the nitty gritty and the technical jargon, which I know will bore you, I always try and do this. Again, this is kind of Socratic Method, a little bit in play, like we did with Neil Gorsuch. I showed you the highlights that were shown at Huffington Post and Salon when they would say, Al Franken destroys Neil Gorsuch. So I want to show you what leftists are showing your children or your college-age students regarding critical theory. Let's roll that clip.
Gina is in the 6th grade, and she's very excited to move to middle school.
Audio was recorded in a
She
bathroom,
wants
by
to
the way.
learn more about science and math, and maybe invent some cool technology when
And why
she's a
she
grown
dresses
up.
like a Village People
But
sailor.
there's an issue. Gina isn't from the best neighborhood. She's not white. And she's a woman. All
Well, she's
three of
screwed.
those things can impact her education and, as an extension, her future.
Yeah, it might be free.
Critical theory is a philosophy that involves being critical of the prevailing view of society. In many cases, that means looking closer at beliefs that might favor privileged people, like rich white men, over other people like Gina.
Okay, so I know that was tough to watch, guys. Sorry, we're gonna have to. We need to set this up. Marley was dead to begin with, so people understand. Now that you've seen the child version, let me explain a little further. Critical theory seeks to move beyond observation of subjects or participation in attempt to reveal constraints, thereby motivating informants to engage in conscious political action. The critical theorist is seen as a liberator, seeking to make social actors aware of oppressive structures. The first step on the road to social change. So, are you noticing anything yet? People who say, yeah, I used to be a liberal, but they changed radically. No, listen, Barack Obama, this was actually the bombshell that Andrew Breitbart was going to drop before he died. He wasn't the one who was framing it necessarily as a bombshell, but then obviously people who worked with him did, and so it was seen as a dud. But it really is a big deal if you understand. Derek Bell was one of his professors. He talked about as one of his greatest inspirations was a critical race theorist. So it can apply to critical gender theory, critical race theory. The whole idea is challenging the simple status of societal norms. That's the basis of critical theory. Sound familiar? Patriarchy, heteronormativity. This is where it stems from. You need to understand. It's not just a bunch of people.
It's everything I hate.
But it's not just MTV and fat feminists on YouTube who woke up one day. They've been indoctrinated with this through college. Let me give you some examples of what it leads to in college, some silly humanities courses. You have queer musicology at UCLA, ecofeminism at the College of New Jersey, pornography and culture at the University of North Carolina, not feminist pornography. Those were two separate courses.
Oh, thank God.
Just a bunch of fat broads servicing themselves. Nobody wants to watch it. Again, this is, so let me now briefly touch on the Socratic Method. For those of you who don't know, I think here's what's ironic. There are so many ironies here, but the Socratic Method doesn't have the word critical in its title, but it actually requires critical thinking. Critical theory requires the opposite. It requires confirmation bias. And this is kind of where we, again, benign sounding names, pro-choice. No, you're not really pro-choice. That's not what's occurring there. Critical theory is actually not really about critical thinking at all. The Socratic Method requires critical thinking. So it is basically, to define it as simply as possible, it is asking questions that elicit generative answers. In other words, asking questions that require someone to substantiate their opinion, to validate their position as opposed to speculation. And that can be boiled down to why? Well, how? Right? It can literally boil down to something being that simple for someone's entire argument to unravel. And here's why. Socrates, by the way, can you think of anyone more liberal than Socrates? This was an open-minded thinker by any measure that we would have available to us. Socrates did not believe that the most effective way to change someone's mind was through lecturing or through sermonizing. He believed the most effective way to change someone's mind was to ask these questions to get to the root cause. Here's something that's important to note. Critical theory. All it is societal norms must be wrong, therefore you're finding a way to justify that conclusion. It is confirmation bias based on a pre-made judgment. The Socratic Method, which liberals have eliminated from college, which leftist professors no longer like because they don't think that it takes into the equation things like white privilege or heteronormativity. They've abandoned the Socratic Method in favor of critical theory. And these are the same people who often talk about safe spaces, judgment-free zones. The Socratic Method is entirely based on truth, on getting to the truth. Now, in order to attain that, it requires there to be no initial judgment. It's a judgment-free zone because you're asking questions. The Socratic Method can only work if you actually are right. If you're having an argument and you're rolling the dice in the Socratic Method, you're believing that line of questioning is going to lead the opposing point of view to your opinion. So to use the Socratic Method, which is something that if you look at any really noted conservative economist or great sort of Republican right-wing libertarian thinker of the last 50, they always talk about the Socratic Method. It requires that you believe you are correct, and it requires that you don't make a prejudicial judgment on the outset because that would alter the course to truth. Critical theory, however, from the leftists, the open-minded leftists, and they are doing this in order to open your mind in college in order to be more tolerant, requires that you start the line of questioning, the line of the beginning of the investigation with a pre-made judgment in order for you to circle back to draw to that conclusion. And it's an irony that I am amazed nobody out there not nobody, but very few people openly talk about. Again, the left could not, if you need more approval, talk about Dave Rubin. Critical theory is case in point. The left could not be more closed-minded. They are the most judgmental and ill-informed pricks I can think of. You look like you're trying to jump in.
Well, which makes it really hard to have an argument or have a discussion about something because you're like, well, no, like you said, why do you believe that? And they're like, because it is. Wait, no, but why do you believe that? Look. It happens. Yeah. Like, what? No, right. Wait, let's talk just a minute. We can get to the bottom of this.
It's the opposite of the childlike wonder in the Socratic Method. Yeah. Well, why? Why is this guy that way? Yeah, ever have a kid ask you a question that gets into like biology or science and you realize you have no clue because the angels are crying, dear? I don't know. But the kid is using the Socratic Method in that situation. In the other situation is when you're asking a kid for an answer. That's critical theory. Well, sweetheart, why did you use the crayons on my wall? Hey, why did you use crayons? I don't have crayons.
Patriarchy.
I don't get to have crayons. You have the pocketbook.
You see this a lot in church too. I've seen pastors who go up to preach, and you could tell like they don't really like. It wasn't like a message where like, hey, we're gonna go through this book of the Bible. We're gonna just take it. We're gonna go wherever it takes us. They're like, I got an axe to grind this week. Let me dig up some verses. Let me dig up. They can support whatever they want to say. Because they have arrived at what they want to say, and they can find whatever they want to support. It's the same thing with white privilege, with whatever you want to call it right now. You can find things to support if you want to, but that doesn't mean that's where truth would organically lead you if that's what you were really trying to find.
That's a good point.
Well, then it becomes mob mentality, and you can't support your position. And so when we're the target of that mob, white males, we don't have any idea what's going on. We don't have any understanding of where they want us to go other than go away.
There's been a pre-made judgment based about whatever it is that you have accomplished because of
it's all because of
things
that.
you have things that are completely outside of your control. Circumstances outside of your control. That is what's so crazy about it is the discrimination that stems from critical theory and it's taught in colleges.
Sure.
Yeah. It is a systemic teaching of how to discriminate without actually getting enough information.
How long has this been going on in college?
Yeah,
Oh, hell, this is going to be a rough next decade.
If anyone reads, you know what? There's going to be probably 3 Supreme Court picks under Donald Trump
I
here.
hope so. Gotcha,
that's a big part of it. But Barack Obama always talked about that. He always talked about Derek Bell. He was
no wonder I didn't know what the hell he was saying.
You look at Reverend Jeremiah Wright. You look at Bill Ayers. These were critical theorists, namely critical race theorists,
not critical
and Marxists to a T.
It's a real slippery slope. You think about where that could lead to. I mean, where you can justify just about anything.
Yeah. Well, and listen, and I'm very straightforward that I have a bias. People are like, this is not an unbiased show. It's an entertainment program. However, the Socratic Method, it doesn't eliminate bias. If you read it, it doesn't eliminate, humans are inherent requirement for some kind of a worldview. You can call it being an ideologue, but everyone has an ism through which they view the world. I've talked about that. Now, that ism can just be feelings, like critical theory, or that ism can be a set of principles which, for better or worse, can help you, guide you generally in the right direction. But the Socratic Method does not eliminate your own inherent bias. What it does allow you to do is look at it from an outsider perspective, sort of like an out-of-body experience, to see if that bias does it hold water. That's what the Socratic Method allows you to do. And you'll find out really quickly, because again, it only works if you're right. If you start going down that line of questioning, it's kind of like a lawyer. Never ask a question you don't know the answer to.
Yeah.
The Socratic Method is not in your best interest if A, you're wrong, or B, your position is based on unsubstantiated feelings. That's why professors want to get rid of it. Speaking of which, Socratic Method, San Francisco is looking at removing disclosure. Socratic Method. Why do you suck at speaking so much? San Francisco is looking to remove disclosure laws. We've talked about this with, we'll have to get him back, Chad with AIDS.
Chad with AIDS.
What this means is they want
our resident AIDS.
There's a push in California to remove the felony classification of knowingly transmitting AIDS. To a partner who doesn't know. They want to decriminalize that. So that doesn't mean make it, a speeding ticket, but they wanted to criminalize it to a misdemeanor. And a big California state senator is pushing it. His name, Scott Wiener. This guy.
Speaking of AIDS.
No, that's not a joke.
It's not right now. Sure.
His name is Scott Wiener. That's him. And he's pushing to decriminalize knowingly spreading HIV.
Where do you go with that? I mean, what do you do?
Let's go to the Socratic Method. Why? Now, here's his answer. Because he seeks to destigmatize HIV. Apparently, he said there's a stigma attached to HIV and AIDS that we need to remove. Okay. We don't want to stigmatize everything. I understand. We want to remove the stigma between, women who work. Great. We want to remove the stigma associated with bully breed dogs. Okay. We want to remove the stigma attached to an entirely controllable sexually transmitted disease that can kill other people you're knowingly transmitting.
Yeah.
When is it okay to have a little stigma? Remember shame? Remember where that was a thing? You know what? I'm okay with stigma with AIDS in North America. Let's eliminate from the pot, obviously, the kids who are born with AIDS in these third world countries. That's horrible. And I'm so glad that Bono is over there fixing it. He's done his work. It's done.
Thank you, Bono.
But AIDS in the United States is almost an entirely preventable disease. And if there is an uptick, as some people have argued, it's because of problems like bug chasing and gift giving. Chad with AIDS, who's on the show, will talk about that in the gay American community. Sorry, are you saying AIDS is the gay disease? Yeah. In the United States, yes. CDC stats showed at 94%. So again, the Socratic Method is here. Why? Because we want to destigmatize AIDS or HIV. And this goes back to same thing, critical theory, in starting off with confirmation bias that this is the victim, we must help them. You create real victims. In this case, the victim is the person with HIV who has to say, do you have any idea how embarrassing that is? Yeah, almost as bad as contracting AIDS. Who's getting the shorter end of that stick?
No pun intended.
Seriously, we're supposed to feel bad for the guy. So, okay, let's like Kevin McGinnis says, let's play this through.
Yeah.
Okay, so the guy who has HIV, the person we're seeking to protect with this legislation. This is not new, by the way, but there's an actual push, and it might go through in California because of this guy in the Folsom Street Fair leather. Let's play this through, okay? Worst case scenario for the guy with HIV if this law doesn't get through. Right? Worst case scenario. He's about to have unprotected anal sex with a stranger. Okay. Just saying, that's really what this law is about. Let's just be honest. Whenever we're like talking about these laws, like domestic abuse, like that's what it is. We're talking about disclosure laws. You are talking about largely this guy not having to disclose age when you have unprotected anal sex with a male partner.
He's making new laws.
It's not a law that's created for couples. Right? If you've been, you're going to figure that out sooner or later. Yeah, sweetheart, I went in for my basic rudimentary. They were testing my thyroid. Is there something you want to tell me? Whoopsie. Okay. Worst case scenario for the victim they claim we need to protect. Right now, this person is about to have unprotected sex with a stranger, and they are required to go, do you know what? Oh, it's kind of awkward. Should probably use a condom. I have AIDS. Not comfortable. Worst case scenario for the other guy, he has AIDS!
Does anybody get this?
He gets AIDS!
I love how when they try to argue too, they're like, well, it's because it's under the detectable amounts.
Yeah.
It's like
viral load, they call it.
I don't want James Bond AIDS sneaking up on me. Like that doesn't make it better. Super secret double agent AIDS doesn't make it somehow safer.
No, I know.
No.
And they always use those words. They feel like, well, it's virtual. If it's undetectable, it's virtually impossible for you to contract it. Oh, so there's no chance of me getting it. It's virtually impossible.
It's virtually impossible.
So there's no chance of me getting HIV if this guy is viral. It's almost non-existent. Hold on a second.
Just give me a straight answer.
We're a little murky on the AIDS book. All right. We have to get out another outrage here. 2, Pepsi. Was it Kendall Jenner, Kylie Jenner? Kendall Jenner. Kendall Jenner put out a Pepsi ad, which is being called the worst advertisement of all time, and Pepsi pulled it. They thought it was insensitive. To give you an idea, it was kind of like Black Lives Matter and the Women's March all rolled into one, and then Kendall Jenner shows up and she shares a Pepsi with a cop. This is what it is. By the way, first off, before we talk about this, can we all acknowledge then that this Jenner is totally faking the giant ass thing on Instagram? That is not legitimate. That's a trend, by the way. You're going to look back in 2012 to 2015. Remember that trend of giant asses that were like totally fake from the Kardashians, the implants? We all acted like we liked it as though that was a natural attraction. That was a thing.
Yeah,
I know. We all acted like that. Did you ever like it? No. Yeah. So anyways, she's faking it. Sorry, what were we going to say, Jared?
Just a joke about midgets in your pants. Just move on. Go on.
About my pants?
Well, no,
Just
as somebody with a giant ass, I think the people that fake it, you're like, you don't own that. That's not real.
No, it's not
yeah,
real.
You're clearly
You're not
stealing
one of
things.
us.
I can't conceal. Jared knows it's hard for me to find a holster because of my giant ass.
We should do some measurements sometimes. Anyway, continue.
Who's going to get the measuring tape? It's going to be that guy from. It's going to be that guy from San Francisco.
He's going to tell you if he has AIDS or not first, though.
The show deserves to be demonetized.
And it's coming.
Oh, we've earned it. And they said it was insensitive because they thought it was sort of a send up. This was recorded before this event happened, but they thought it was insensitive because of this famous image of this Black Lives Matter activist who went toe to toe with the riot police. Didn't go well for her. The bell rang. She was not still standing.
It's true.
I just want to go to distance. Not this time.
Not this time.
What happened? Like that was, by the way, before we get into this, that is one of those stories we didn't cover it. I don't know why. Did it happen yesterday?
This one,
the initial picture. No, the initial picture happened a while ago, right?
Yeah, I caught it a while ago. Yeah, that one. Yeah.
Okay. It's not that she's black. That wasn't her crime. What it was she was interfering with the police doing her job, and they asked her to move, and she didn't. It's like, I'm just standing. Is standing here a crime? No, but if you're standing in my living room and you don't live there and I ask you to leave, that's a crime. That's the issue. It's not that you're standing, it's that you're doing something which inhibits the action of somebody else, which can sometimes be a crime. Okay. So I don't know about you. I didn't really think this was that outrageous.
It wasn't outrageous at all, right? Coke nails it 1971. I want to buy the world of Coke and sings a song, and like advertising's great. Pepsi tries to go for it and fails. Poor Pepsi, they suck already, and now
so
even
is the
more.
plight of Pepsi.
Yeah.
Yes, Pepsi. And then there was another ad moving. I mean, I don't know. I don't think it was a huge deal, but there was another ad. This one where the outrage was palpable. A Nivea ad for their new deodorant, a white deodorant that doesn't leave any streaks. So
useful.
Their ad was, white is purity. Now, I don't think that you're looking at it now through that lens.
No.
I don't think you would think it was.
I think it's pretty bad.
You still think it's bad?
It's pretty bad.
Nivea, come on.
Really?
I think look at this.
Well, okay, it's the idea white. So
Imagine being black
come
and
on,
reading
especially as a guy who does camera, you can see the overexposed kind of look.
Do you mean it required hindsight to figure that one out? I don't.
Yeah, I don't.
No.
Yes, it did.
Isn't Nivea like Scandinavian brand or something like that, where they're all white anyway? They're like, oh, this is good.
That's true. Yeah, that is true. I remember Band-Aid got into a bunch of flack because they called it like natural or something, and it was beige, so they had to change it. But in the countries where Nivea comes from, that is the only natural.
It's true. It's true, and it's pure.
So everyone was outraged because I don't know. I don't think it was that, but white is purity, which they responded to the market. It elicited Nivea releasing their immediate counterbalance product, Nivea's Pure Tar Sand. They're hedging their bets on the target demographic there. This is not the first.
It works.
This is not the first time. People are outraged. Like, listen, it's okay that there's a Band-Aid that happens to be neutral with white people. Sure. Like I don't tune into BET and get mad that I don't understand the 50th joke about how I can't jump. Like, not all things are for me. That's it.
We just choose to be offended by just about everything
Nivea,
now.
But listen, they'll release it and they'll release something else. And this is not the first time there's been an ad campaign though that was deemed to be insensitive and had to be pulled back. It's been going on for a long time. Well, Pepsi actually had it before too. We've pulled up some of them from the archives. Diet Pepsi had this one before. It was free yourself from high-calorie beverages. So that was...
Well, that could imply, yeah.
I could see how that was a problem.
Yeah.
Looking back, Pepsi doesn't have the best... They don't have the best batting average at this point.
0 for 2.
There was this one... a lot of people don't remember. Billy D. Williams was a big spokesman for this one, but Colt 45 had some problems. It didn't cross generations so well. Colt 45's malt liquor campaign. Hands up, don't sip.
Ooh.
Oh.
Which more offensive is that they seem to be encouraging irresponsible drinking there. That is
of terrible alcohol.
Personally, I'm not a huge fan of that either. And then, of course, there was the ill-fated campaign from, do you remember Coca-Cola Black was half coffee, half Coke?
Yeah, it's pretty disgusting.
Yeah, and I bet you they wish they could take this one back. Coca-Cola Black, bitches ain't shit. One almost wonders what that has to do with soda.
The comma there, mind you. Incredibly important.
Comma is key.
Brilliant.
Coca-Cola Black, comma, bitches ain't shit. So that's important to note. They did try. See, they're getting better.
Yeah.
Not to mention the original drafting of Mr. Clean. People had a huge problem with that. A lot of people forgot about it. Mr. Clean, it was a different era. They didn't know. We have to go. I can't believe we're getting this close to the end here. We have, close to the end, we have our guests coming up. So we have Dave Rubin and Tim Schmidt from United States Concealed Carry Association. Thank you for being here at G. Morgan Jr. I think he has to go. He has to pee.
Ooh, pee.
1%. Yeah, that's what we need. 1%. Now, this is not the Bernie evil 1% bit. 1% of people who are watching, enjoying all of our content for free out there in the wake of YouTube and the demonetization and what's been happening with Twitter and the shadow banning. If 1% of you out there hearing this transmission subscribe to the Mug Club, even if you're a student, veteran, or military at $69 per year, guess what? YouTube does not matter at that point. We'll continue to upload things for free. We'll always give you content for free. But we can't be reliant on it. We employ a lot of people here: Jared, Aaron, Brodigan, Scott, Edward, now Gerald kind of on a part-time basis, Francine, Courtney, Casey. There's so many people. And this is the only job they have. And they're pulling long shifts. And we can't thank you enough for the support. LotterWithCreditor.com/mugclub. But 1%, if 1% of you folks out there who enjoy the free content and watch or listen for an average of 45 minutes, we know you do. We can see it. We can hire more people. It might be you in the next Golden Ticket Challenge. We have an intern right now who may work out. He may not. I don't know. He could be on the chopping block. But there's been a shift right now in online content, and the social media ghettos are becoming less and less honest, and we need to be less and less reliant on them. So if you want to support the content, you want to see more of the content, there's 1% of you out there who want to do that. We appreciate it. If you don't, we'll still continue giving you free content and hopefully change your mind. LouderWithCreditor.com/mugclub. Also, if you don't join, Hopper will die. I was doing this because this is how I feel for our next guest.
Yes.
Cedarwood oil, Dave. Dave Rubin, you know him, the Rubin Report. We were talking about this off air. His hair looked so thick.
It does.
Hey,
It's
you
luscious.
using cedarwood oil? My wife is all into the essential oils, and she got me. It kind of smells farmy, but it does apparently does good things for your hair. How are you, Dave?
Crowder, legally, I cannot take hair advice from a straight guy, but I appreciate it. I'm feeling good about my hair right now. Your hair is looking fine.
Thank you.
For just a guy out there doing your thing with big headphones, I think you're doing fine.
There's no way to make your hair look good with these headphones. That's the thing. It just either pushes it forward or pushes it back. But well, good. Well, you've been a bit busy little beaver there, Dave.
I'm trying.
So you had this video. And we always talk about you kind of personally when you come on the show. So let's talk about some topical stuff after this. But am I a secret conservative or am I a closet conservative? I'm trying to remember what.
Am I a secret conservative? Because that's what these crazy lunatics accuse me of. They're always anonymous on Twitter and on YouTube, and they say he's a stealth or secret conservative.
I don't know what that means. I'm assuming these are the same people who say that I secretly hate Jews.
Yeah, definitely the same people. It's these same people that just want to stir up hate. Well, they think I'm a secret conservative because I talk to people like this. Have you ever hear this far right guy, this Crowder fella, this far right, alt-right,
I don't listen to that
bigot?
kind of trash.
Yeah,
I don't know what you do. I don't know what's allowed over there at Rubin Report, but we run a quality program here, Dave.
We have standards.
Even being associated loosely with this Crowder guy, or if you heard about this real extremist, this white supremacist, this Ben Shapiro, you heard about this guy? I mean, oh my God! Or another wild, crazy guy who would love to take down America, this Dennis Prager. I mean, I talk to these people. So then, if
they're
you're
notorious anti-Semites as well,
horrific anti-Semites who will be eating a lot of matzah for the next couple days.
Yes.
This is the accusation because I talk to you guys. So people say, oh, he must be somehow secretly aligned with them.
Well, I think you kind of, I mean, I don't know if you would call yourself a conservative, but I don't view you as a leftist. And I think it's kind of like we talked about. There's just a wider tent. And so the hateful people who lost you, I guess, on their team, so to speak, back when you were there with a Young Turks of the name, he shall not be spoken. They probably just see you as a conservative in this era. It's anything that's, I'm not a moderate. I'm really clear about that. And I know you're more moderate, but I think pretty much anything out, when you have, like, for example, today we'll get into the Neil Gorsuch thing, and people are saying this nuclear option is unprecedented. Well, you know what? You had 4 Supreme Court justices who didn't believe that private citizens had the right to own any firearm at all. That was the Heller DC case. You've kind of lost your leg to stand on when you're advocating against ideological extremism. And I think that's probably just what's happening with you. You're just lumped in because you're not a crazy gay.
Yeah, thank you. That's the highest compliment one can get. Well, first off, real quick on the Gorsuch thing, and then we'll jump back. You can find videos of me on TYT at the time when, 4 years ago, when Harry Reid and the Dems were flipping the rules. And I was saying that it was short-sighted and you shouldn't do it just because you're in power and you think you're going to keep on having power. Because you have to have principles when it's hard to have them, not just when it's easy. But as far as the other thing, I'm happy to talk to you guys. And I would consider myself a moderate. But I have said a lot lately that defending my liberal principles of free speech and free thought and logic and reason and individuality, which actually is a liberal principle, all of that is now becoming a conservative position. It's certainly not a position of the left. So, I'm not on the left anymore. But I didn't move. The left just went bananas. And I find it a lot easier to build bridges with guys like you. And if we don't exactly agree on abortion or if we don't exactly agree on taxes, so what? We realize that we're supposed to live in the same country
we're
together.
Not allowed to
we got to figure it.
Let's not discuss abortion. No vagina, no opinion. I've read the rule book.
I feel a little dirty calling it TYT.
Yeah, I know.
Just to back up to that.
Yeah.
Oh, what do you want to call it?
Show. So
whatever.
Neil Gorsuch, Gorsuch, no matter which way I say it, someone corrects me. So let's just say Gorsuch, parentheses, itch, depending who you are.
Yep.
This is interesting to me because we watched right away when the hearing started, and even the Al Franken thing. We took the clips that were being run on HuffPo, on Salon, and on all the leftist websites where they said, look, Al Franken rips into Gorsuch. And I thought, are you watching the same clip? So we literally ran the left's highlight reel on Neil Gorsuch and said, what do you guys think? And overwhelmingly, and our channel's not all right-wingers either. We have a lot of moderates there. We're going, this guy seems unbelievable. He is handling these questions superbly. He is very reasonable. He's very civil. What's your view on someone like Neil Gorsuch right now, where you probably don't agree with him ideologically on a lot of issues, but on his handling and the media's just relentless attacks on him?
Yeah, well, a couple of minutes ago I said that I've pretty much stayed the same and the left has gone bonkers. I would say one place where maybe I've shifted a little bit to the right is I really do now view the Constitution not as a living document that needs to be analyzed just in the time in which you live, that we should really be going off the letter of the law. So that's probably somewhere where I've come a little closer probably to where you stand. I would say the bigger issue here isn't whether you think Gorsuch or whatever is good or bad or
way to
or
sidestep the real issue, Dave.
Yeah, well, no, we can get to the real issue, but the real issue, we can get to that.
It's
but
Gorsuch.
The real issue though, really, is the partisan nature of what has become confirmation hearings. That's really what this is about right now, because this isn't about whether Merrick Garland ultimately got on there or Gorsuch or anybody else. It really isn't. Right. What this is about now is the absolute inability of Republicans and Democrats to work together on anything. And what it really is about is the fact that we're all sick of it, and we see it. It's out in the open. Just look today at all the hypocrites being exposed on Twitter, all the Harry Reids and all the other Democratic senators who you can find their tweets from 4 years ago. They were all about the nuclear option, and now they're against it. And I'm sure your good buddy Sally Cohn had a doozy today, and then I just retweeted.
That's lesbian phobic to say buddy. I don't know why. We would think the gays and lesbians get along better than you do in reality. It's a shame.
I treat people individually. So if you're a lesbian and not that bright, or if you're a gay guy and not that bright, I treat you. Doesn't mean I'm condemning.
I don't think she's not that bright. I think she's a great example of someone who is so far in her ideology. And listen, I know people say I'm an ideologue. I am conservative, but I do feel as though I'm able to rationally at least examine and assess my beliefs, and I have changed some of them. But it doesn't change the fact I feel like being aware of my inherent bias is more honest. Whereas I feel as though Sally is so far off the beam ideologically, but tries to act as though she's objective. I think that's what I would say about her. I don't think she's not very bright. On the Gorsuch thing.
By the way, wait, real quick, Crowder. I had Mark Duplass on my show yesterday. It'll be up next Wednesday. Yeah. And I had him on because I watched your interview, and then a zillion people were saying, you guys got to talk. And here's another guy who comes from the left, but in a way, he reminded me of me like 6 months ago. He's starting to wake up to this stuff, and he's going, well, where can I build bridges? Now he's going to Africa with Glenn Beck. They're going on some kind of honeymoon or something. I'm not kidding.
I know. You know what? I will say that is one thing. We bring in these, and then they're everywhere. What was it? Tim Kennedy, Andrew Bogut, Chael Sonnen, and now Mark Duplass. Like, no one in the conservative sphere thought of these guys. And watch, after we have Morgan Spurlock on, everyone will be like, I've been friends with more. I like it when I see you doing it. But Glenn Beck is like, Glenn Beck, can you just give me a credit on your show when they roll? Like, you clearly were not a puffy chair fan, Glenn Beck.
We always go back in Mark Duplass. Always. We always go ahead up.
I like
trails.
Mark. When he was on this show, though, you could see him going red toward the end. He was getting mad. He was getting a little mad because it was his first sort of dive into it. And then I think with you, he had shaken off the cobwebs and was a little more ready.
You know what? He's a good guy. He's trying to find bridges to build, and I would put that ahead of any other partisan nonsense. If I can find a bridge to build, I will try to build it. And by the way, a guy like Beck, who I've tried to build bridges with, and we've become friendly, and I've been on his show. He, I think, did a bit of an odd thing with Tomi Lahren, and I invited them both back to talk about it if they want. So you have to have principles, and it can be tough when you start becoming friendly or whatever.
The Tomi Lahren thing we talked about. It's something like with the Milo situation. It's very difficult, right, to handle that because we're always straightforward. We know people. Now, Bill O'Reilly's not, because I knew this was going on forever. And if you go back on this show, I talked about it in veiled ways. Julianne Huddy's a friend of mine. And I was like, oh, if you're like, do you think this is true? Of course it's true. I've known people he's done it to. Anyway, but with Tomi Lahren and Glenn Beck, I think there are a couple issues there. I think the main thing is that she was like super vehemently pro-life 2 weeks up until the View appearance. And the question is, well, what changed outside of the audience? And so I think there's some trust issues there between Glenn and Tomi. But it was handled very poorly all around.
By the way, he's allowed to do whatever he wants. It's his company, so I don't begrudge him that in any way whatsoever. And also, as you just alluded to, we're not privy to every little thing that went on behind the scenes between the two of them. Right. For all we know, she told him to kiss off, and then he had every right to do whatever he wanted. So, but real quick on O'Reilly, I don't know the stuff that you may know. I can only see what is being reported. But there is something that I don't like about this, which is that once there's a little blood, we now know once there's blood in the water, everybody attacks. And now all of these, 11 companies or whatever saying they're not going to advertise, just 20. Like that. Is it 20? So, okay, so just like that, the guy's been number one for 30 years. I'm not defending any of the things he may or may not have done. No, I understand. But this concept, because that concept can come for all of us. Yes. And I think that's what we have to be careful about, especially for guys like us that are on the new frontier of this. Right. Because one day it'll turn on us too, so we shouldn't be too.
Well, I understand that, and I said that about Milo. Like, I vehemently disagree with what Milo said. If you listen to it in context, the more context you added, the worse it was with the pedophile comments. I talked about that, but I said I can also disagree with what he said, and still be extremely upset about the hit job that was carried out on him. This is something taken from a long time back. It was out in the open, so I understand that. I will say, though, I think it does us a disservice to act as though that's the case with Bill O'Reilly when it's 13 million with like 6 different women and like bordering on serious sexual assault.
Sure, I'm not getting into the nitty-gritty of it.
And a culture over there at Fox News, with Roger Ailes and Bill O'Reilly, and you look at the other people who are implicated, who are at the top. Many people who I've worked with, there's some great people there, but there is a culture in a lot of big cable news networks. This isn't just Fox News, of silence. And if it's not sexual harassment, it could be plagiarism. That happened a lot from people within the network and producers. And it was, if you really want to move up in this network, you don't talk about the guy who's ripping your stuff off. And that happened to Friends. And then with Bill O'Reilly, it was more of a handsy kind of Roger Sterling thing. That's just the way I picture him. Okay, Neil Gorsuch, because I know you can't be here super long. It seems to be the biggest knock against him from the left is like, he's a constitutionalist. Can you believe this? Like, he defends corporations over people. Like, no, hold on a second. He actually just defended the rule of constitutional law. That seems to be the biggest knock, and I think that's where there's the disconnect, kind of like Gavin McInnes has talked about, where they go, can you believe that Neil Gorsuch said XYZ? And we're just going, can you believe Neil Gorsuch said XYZ? Like, I sit there, I'm going, this is your A game. And I can't think of a justice who's handled this better than this guy in a while.
Yeah, I mean, look, from everything I watched, he strikes me as incredibly competent and well thought out. I haven't heard anything that seemed duplicitous to me or anything like that. They always want to get you on this litmus test related to abortion or something else and all those little games. Yeah. But again, this goes back to where I started with this, which is that if you want to be governed by the Constitution, then we have to be governed by the Constitution, and you have to look at what it says, period. Now, if you want to change the Constitution, you can amend the Constitution, and we have to do that legislatively. But this is where, unfortunately, people on the left, they get their feelings caught up. This is Ben Shapiro's facts over feelings, things or feelings over facts thing.
He's a smarmy little Jew, that one, but he's smart.
But he's bright. He's bright, that guy. By the way, did you see that? I think I sent you something this morning, this video that this guy created.
Yeah, the Star Wars parody. Yeah,
with me as Rey in The Force Awakens, taking down Cenk as Kylo Ren, and Shapiro jumps in as, what's his name? Oh, man. What the hell was that guy's name in the movie?
I don't know. I'm not a Star Wars guy. I have a wife. Continue.
Oh, not Poe, the other guy. Whatever. Anyway, the point is, it's either we're governed by the Constitution or we're not. And if you're not happy with what's in the Constitution, then fight to amend it properly. It's the same thing with the people that want to take down the entire administration right now. It's like, that's not what's going to make us a better democracy. If you don't like Trump, then work on getting better people elected in 2018 and get a good candidate out in 2030. Don't take the whole system down. We got to have some systems that are consistent.
Let me ask you this in closing, because you were with the Young Turks, obviously, before.
I'm going to give you 2 bonus minutes. Make it good.
2 bonus minutes. This is serious because you just said, I've kind of veered now. I'm more of a constitutionalist. Let me ask you this. Think back, and you can take a second. Did these questions or did these thought processes ever actually come up when you were in the room at the Young Turks?
To me, even talking about them in a certain way is just sort of pointless because I don't even know how relevant they are anymore. And I think
Sure.
you and a couple other people, but particularly you, have done a really good job at kind of showing what Cenk is. And
Well, I mean
all
more
that.
so just any circle of leftists, because in my experience, it hasn't come up. I've been in the boardroom there at places like HLN or MSNBC, and this conversation, I think the big reason you're like, well, now I'm more of sort of a constitutionalist. A lot of the time, it's because these conversations with the left, it never even comes up. And I was just wondering in your experience if that was the case, because it would give me great insight, to know how to better understand people.
Yeah, I mean, I can say this, that, when I would be on the main show, you just walk on with some notes and you start talking. So it wasn't like there was like a lot of back and forth beforehand about political philosophy or anything like that. So again, it ends up being feelings because every day something goes down, right? There's news every day. Somebody on the left does something nuts. Somebody on the right does something nuts. But if you're always reacting to just the feeling of any given day, how does this feel right now in this very moment?
Right.
You always have a reason to scream. You always have a reason to slander and all that stuff. And what I'm really trying to do, and this is why I do the interviews the way I do it and why I like talking to you, is that I'm really trying to get people to step back and go, we have a broad pluralistic country here. There's room for other opinions, but we have to agree on what governs us.
Right.
And maybe I'll shift a little more in that direction now, and hopefully I can get some of the left people to join me on that ride.
I think it's a great answer. And listen, I always appreciate you taking the time when you come on. That is Dave Rubin on YouTube at Rubin Report. Is it Rubin
Look at
Report?
that.
Look at that. I know.
Isn't
it
that
is.
nice thing?
It's like Johnny Bravo over there. Get the sunglasses. I know you're going somewhere out of town, so you'll come back with a nice tan. Rubin Report on YouTube. Where else? Where's the best other place for people to find you?
Well, we got, we're on the iTunes. We got a podcast. We're around.
That's
we're
right.
all over the
He's
place.
on the iTunes. That's the newfangled talking robot. Dave Rubin, thank you very much, sir. Go enjoy wherever it is you're going, and we will be back with a guy. All right, glad to bring our next guest on. For people who don't know, if you're listening to this show, depending, it's the internet, so they could be listening whenever. But
That's true.
April 8th, Fort Worth Convention Center. We've been talking about this for a while. The annual Second Amendment Awards, 2aawards.com to buy your tickets. Tim Kennedy's going to be there. Iraq Veteran 88. It's going to be 88's going to be there. Owen Benjamin's going to be there.
Yes.
And this man is the founder and president of the USCCA, United States Concealed Carry Association. Tim. Well, I don't know his last. I just know him as
Schmidt.
Some called me Tim. Tim Schmidt, how are you, sir?
I'm doing fantastic. It's an honor to be here. I'm super pumped about this weekend. Second Amendment Awards ceremony is going to be unbelievable. And of course, it's wrapped around the USCCA Concealed Carry Expo, which is our third expo that we've ever done. This is going to be the biggest, bestest, fastest. We're expecting up to 15,000 visitors. So if you like guns, this is the place to be.
Yeah, it certainly is. Particularly, you guys focus on the concealed carry aspect, obviously. So it really is remarkable how big this market has become. Very quickly. When I was growing up, concealed carry, even among firearm owners, was not really a thing. Would you say until the last decade and a half, as far as it being as common as it is?
Yeah, it really kind of kicked off in 1987 with Florida kind of led the way. And of course, at that time, all of the lefties were wringing their hands and gnashing their teeth. And they're like, oh, my gosh, every traffic stop or traffic bump is going to be blood in the streets. And, of course, that didn't happen. And now there's an estimated 15 million people have concealed carry permits. And ultimately, we're all safer.
Yeah, well, we were just talking about that, having been in Detroit recently for my father's reunion game. I said, carjacking is not just, get out the car. It was actually a term invented for the practice in Detroit where they would pin you between two cars. And just I mean, you all of a sudden you stop at the wrong light and your car's just on cinder blocks. Like, what the hell happened? There's nothing left, and you're dead. But in states like Texas, historically, now it's changing. Michigan gun laws are actually pretty relaxed. It didn't happen at the same rate. Yeah. And we've talked about that. Comparing these crime rates are important because there's still a lot of gang-on-gang crime in these states. But when you remove that, the crime against civilians is a lot lower than states where people aren't allowed to protect themselves. So sometimes that isn't reflected in just the initial statistic people hear.
No, that's a good point. It's so ironic because you look at the cities where all the huge crime is, Chicago, Washington, D.C. Those are the places where you can't have, any guns at all. Yeah. Compared to, like, for example, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, crime is going down. It used to be a very high crime area, but 5 years ago, Wisconsin passed probably some of the best concealed carry legislation in the state. And the funny thing happened, I shouldn't say funny, but it was unfortunate for the criminals. Shortly after that concealed carry bill passed, there was a bunch of situations where the bad guys got shot, and guess what? They kind of figured it out and they backed down. So that's good news.
Well, see, some people hear what you just said and they think of it as sociopathic because the bad guys got shot. See, that's how they try and paint it. Like, well, don't you have compassion for? Not so much. Home invaders, not so much. Now they try to push a law in Nevada where homeowners can. Home invaders can sue homeowners if they get hurt when they invade a home. And that's how the left tries to, like, we had someone say that, like, what are you, a sociopath? You're glad that people were shot? I'm like, I'm not glad that people are killed, but I am glad that a homeowner shot the bad guys and got out unscathed. And it seems like most people agree with that, but the media is so out of touch with it. You say that to the wrong person in New York or LA, like, how could you take joy in bad guys being shot? It's still a bullet. Yes.
So that's so true. I mean, here's the way I like to look at it. So there's an event, right? The event involves a good guy and a bad guy, right? Bad guy comes in and tends to do bad harm. There's only two possible outcomes. Either the bad guy prevails or the good guy prevails. I'm sorry, but I'm on the side of the good guy.
Well, that's incredibly simplistic. The issue is much more nuanced than that. For example, had the bad guy not eaten for several hours? Was his blood sugar low?
That could be problematic.
That could be. Was the good guy, quote unquote, wearing perhaps the wrong colors? Did he wear red? Did he wear blue? Did he decide to stay neutral? You need to respect their culture when you enter their territory.
I have a question.
Yes.
To Tim. Has playing Batman overshadowed your gig at the USCCA in recent years? Has that been a problem?
No. He's not nearly as gay as Ben Affleck.
He's not as gay. Not at all.
You must get that, though, the Ben Affleck comparison, right?
Yes, I have. I've heard that, yeah.
He's a good-looking guy. He's just an ass, so it's not that bad.
I'm just trying to beat the YouTube comments because they know they're going to be there.
That's half the YouTube comments. They don't listen to what we're talking about. That guy looks like a hippopotamus. Okay, so this event is going on. And by the way, I think you're giving away free knives to everyone who goes through there at the Fort Worth Convention Center, right?
So we've been promoting this the last couple of months, and when you pre-register, you get a free knife, and while supplies last, at the event, we're giving away a free knife, with the purchase of a ticket. So, and these aren't like some cheap, non-legit knives. These are nice Kershaw professional folding knives.
I don't know what professional mean. Like, I'm a professional little folding knifer, but I think they are nice. I have a Kershaw. It's very nice. I found it on the floor at a Love's gas station outside of Waco.
There's some criminal DNA on that.
Oh my gosh,
thing. It's probably filthy.
Yeah. That's why it doesn't sleep under my pillow. So okay, you have the USCCA, and I've been aware of you guys for a long time. Is it Concealed Carry is the name of the magazine too that you guys put out there?
Yep, our flagship publication is Concealed Carry magazine.
Concealed Carry, okay. So why this expo? Why USCCA? Because there's no shortage of sort of firearm organizations out there in the United States. And I think it's important for a lot of people out there to understand that not all firearm organizations are necessarily politically aligned. And sometimes they'll be surprised as to where the money is going. So what's different about what you do? Why this expo?
Good question. So USCCA is primarily focused on serving our customers. We don't do lobbying on the Hill. We don't quite frankly, I'm not a big fan of any politicians, Republican or Democrat. I think for the most part, they say one thing and they do another thing. And so we help the Second Amendment cause by supporting the Second Amendment Foundation. We're one of their biggest donors. We were part of the amicus brief for Chicago v. McDonald, which is a huge landmark SCOTUS case. So we got that end covered. But really, our customers are where it's at. So we give them education, training, and self-defense insurance, which is really kind of the big thing that we do.
Yeah.
So that when they're in that situation, they have to pull that trigger. We're their deep pockets. We've got their back.
Do you know about this, not gay Jared?
I don't.
Oh, the insurance. Yeah. So they actually insure you. So in other words, nowadays, like in Nevada, where they want to be able to sue the
Oh,
homeowner.
yeah.
So if you just so happen to take out the trash with your concealed carry firearm, you're a part of their insurance program. They've got
know about that.
lawyers helping you, and they're on the phone faster than you can say Bloods or Crips. So I have that about right?
That's exactly right. Yeah, we have over 450 pro-Second Amendment criminal defense attorneys who are literally waiting right now to help our members.
Yeah, and that is a big difference. Like you said, there are organizations that, and having worked with nonprofits and 501c3s before, it can be kind of this cycle. I remember I've worked with a few, so people are going to try and do their Googling, they're searching, it must be this one. I've worked with many different nonprofits, certainly as a consultant. Sometimes what they would do is they would write out a research paper, or they would do some kind of a lobbying bit, and they would send that paper out to donors, who would then in turn donate more money just so this paper would be sent out again to donors. And nothing was really being done, but people felt like they were doing something. That's got to be especially frustrating since you guys provide an actual service. And in the Second Amendment community, sometimes people just find a niche market. You know what I mean? And they're just like, oh, let's milk this for all it's worth.
Yeah, you're right. There are some unscrupulous, pro-Second Amendment organizations that really it's just kind of smoke and mirrors. And that's it's one of the reasons that I love this expo, because this gives me an opportunity to go and actually talk face to face with my customers. And guess what? If you're doing the smoke and mirror trick, you don't want to talk to your customers. You're afraid of them because ultimately they're not very happy with what they're getting.
Yeah, it's like, hey Tim, I shot a guy who came in and he kidnapped my kid, and then your attorneys never answered. You talked to my assistant. Okay,
that's true.
It absolutely is true. Yeah, transparency is key, and we've always talked about that. Where if something is a little more expensive, no, we're not talking about this concealed carry insurance, but I will go with the person who at least seems transparent, and particularly if someone gives me the shortcomings, like if it's a firearm, they'll say, well, this one, you're giving up a little bit of this, and I go, oh. They're being straightforward about it, as opposed to someone who's just like, this is the best out there, period. Nothing even comes close. And then they leave and you never see them again. In your case, shooting a sequel to Justice League. Okay, so, Tim, we don't have a ton of time today. Where is this and when, and where can people get tickets?
Location is in Fort Worth, Texas. And, boy, now you got me. The actual place is the Fort Worth Convention Center Arena.
I don't know how you're the founder. I'll do your job for you. It is at the Fort Worth Convention Center, April 8th. That will be me, not gay Jared, Iraq veteran 8888, Tim Kennedy, and of course, this Tim. And we'll be giving out what? We'll be awarding, is it Firearm of the Year, Ammo of the Year? There are a bunch of, it's like the Oscars, but not sucking.
It's like the cool Oscars. Yeah, best gun, best holster, best ammo of the year, and the 2017 Second Amendment Hero.
That's a big one. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that one. And for people who are asking, I actually don't know yet who wins.
Really?
So hopefully we don't pull a Steve Harvey. Timmy, thank you so much. 2AAwards.com. USCCA is a great organization. I hope people go and check it out. Thank you, and we'll see you on April 8th.
Sounds good. Thanks, guys.
Wait, hold on. There's music. Stop speaking. There's music.
Dark Knight here. And thanks to my utility belt, I don't need firearms, but you do. Which is why April 8th, the Dark Knight, Rubin, and other special guests in Fort Worth will be attending the annual Second Amendment Awards presented by the United States Concealed Carry Association. You can buy your tickets at 2AAwards.com and enjoy an evening filled with special guests like yours truly, Stephen Crowder, Not Gay Jared, Iraq Veteran 8888, Colai Noir, and Tim Kennedy, and more. We'll be discussing topics like Firearm of the Year, Manufacturer of the Year, and of course firearm safety, which is most important, which is why it's pivotal that we always clear the weapon. Clear that, Rubin.
Holy cow, Batman, that's loaded!
This whole time? Oh, fuck.
play us out. To end the show? Go. Dave Rubin, Tim Schmidt, very nice guests. Appreciate it. Then I'm going to go grope an intern. I don't know why Bill Riley said
Poor Aaron.
It's one of those deals where poor Aaron.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's one of those deals where I know a lot of conservatives are like, oh, why are you criticizing Bill O'Reilly? Because he's an ass.
Yeah.
Also, it's not like it's criticizing a conservative. Also, he sexually harassed like 5 different women. So
Over multiple decades.
yeah, I get the swords can come out for anyone at any time, but I think it's pretty different from like you said a naughty word or you said something that offended somebody and you just, called the secretary while you were masturbating. I think there's a line and he found it.
He found it.
Yeah, he's way beyond it.
Speaking of, we have some great guests next week. We have the distillers at Wild Turkey. We have Tony Bugle coming on.
Mm-hmm.
I think we have Mike Rowe next week.
Oh, nice.
And we have the big concealed carry, the annual Second Amendment Awards, April 8th at the Fort Worth Convention Center. So listen, to go back to what we were talking about, some people were talking about this on Twitter, and also something, by the way, behind the paywall for people who are Mug Club members. A lot of people like the Owen Benjamin segment where he was talking about people getting offended at the word retarded and then calling him a moron or idiot. And so maybe we should upload that clip to YouTube for non-Mug Club members. But again, it sort of ties in with what we were talking about with the Socratic Method. Listen, and Rubin and I touched on this. I try to be as honest as humanly possible with you, and we are so appreciative of our audience. I hope one thing that you notice, and Jared, Nake Jared was talking about this, we never want to take our audience for granted. That's why we're always putting together sketches and photoshops and big video segments, that cost thousands of dollars to produce, and we're always trying to move. They don't all land. Not everything you do when you experiment lands.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But we don't just want to sit and talk into a microphone about the same issues everybody else does and just bitch and moan and accomplish nothing, because at a certain point, we're not providing you with value. We're not educating you at that point, and we're certainly not entertaining you. On this program, it either has to be informative, enlightening, or apparently I also need a vocal coach.
Canadian.
Enlightening. Apparently somebody maybe my wife didn't disclose something to me. I don't know if HIV makes you mealy-mouthed. I assume it comes with a laundry list of problems.
Not a crime.
I assume you would speak more poorly. It either has to be informative, enlightening, or entertaining. It's got to be one of those, or it doesn't make the cut. Now, sometimes you may say, "Oh, I can think of a few segments this show that were none of those things." I'll give you that. But we want to be honest with you. And again, I'm not a journalist. We try to list. You see all the overlays and sources. On shorter videos on YouTube, we actually list, or if it's on the website, louderwithcutter.com, we list the sources. On the videos, we actually try to show you the sources because we don't have time to do everything. But I have an inherent conservative bias, a right-leaning bias, more libertarian, classical conservative, classical liberal, depending on what term you want to use, bias. I think everyone in this room would acknowledge that they have a bias.
Yeah.
And I don't think that acting as though you're objective when you're clearly not, and that's the root of critical theory, trying to erase your bias, I don't think that actually improves honesty, be it through reporting or through a discussion. I think it cloaks dishonesty. I think you're probably committing one of the worst crimes as it relates to honesty. You're lying to yourself. If you say, well, you know what, I only care about truth. Great. That's us here. We care about truth. And I try to go into it without any bias. That's not true. You're not capable of doing it.
Sure.
Yeah.
Human beings are not capable of doing that. Now, some are better than others. But the beacon of truth that people hold out as, the classic journalism, when people just reported the news, Walter Cronkite said, you cannot be a journalist and not be a liberal. This was a guy, Dan Rather, Tom Brokaw. I mean, these are people who, Dan Rather's case, had him or workers for him outright forged documents. You had Walter Cronkite, who behind closed doors openly talked about how he hated anyone from different points of view from him and how he wouldn't hire them. So my point is, no one is able to escape their own biases. And listen, there's a portion of critical theory that's right, that a lot of that is shaped by history and by our own personal experiences. Sure. So to lie to yourself about that, I think, is the first big mistake. And you see a lot of channels and a lot of shows doing that.
So many people do that.
Yeah.
So I am telling you the opposite, and this is where the Socratic Method comes in. I want you to do this. And because we've had to correct stories on the site several times, or on this show several times. Gorsuch, there's one. I was saying Gorsuch. And I did because my EP, who's supposed to have my back, hung me out to dry and corrected me when I said Gorsuch.
Did he try to verify on the computer? Remember that?
As a matter of fact, he tried to confirm his bias by one of them said Gorsuch, and he said, "Well, that's just a computer talking."
He's like,
the
computer's going to know. Gorsuch, well, that's just a computer.
He wasn't willing to accept any new information.
He was pulling out the Teddy Ruck spin. Okay, let's get
clearly broken.
No, but we've had to issue corrections. I don't think we've ever had to issue an outright retraction before, but we have had to issue corrections.
Yeah.
I want you to call me or any of our team on it. That's the only way this program works, is if there seems to be some kind of transparency. And I want you to say, listen, you're biased here. Yeah, I usually admit it. But if you think I'm wrong, you can tell us why we're wrong. That's fine. That's the Socratic method. We try to ask the questions that use the methodology that gets to the truth. Now, because I do have a bias, meaning because I do think I'm right, that's the method I choose to use. And if I'm wrong, then it bites me in the ass. Usually it tends to win out. That's why, generally speaking, again, not always, you see a lot of leftist channels on YouTube who don't want to have this kind of cross conversation. And I'm not talking about, listen, there are channels on YouTube where they just wanted to, their debate is just calling you a naughty word, saying the F word into the microphone and saying it's real talk. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about people actually out there who want to have these discussions. We have people all the time, Mark Duplass, Dave Rubin, because we believe the Socratic method works in the presence of truth. In the absence of truth, you end up with a lot of egg on your face. And people all the time, too, there's this thing, we've talked about this with leftists, like with Owen Benjamin, where they just take something and they say it enough so that you become embarrassed about it. For example, someone says, you're a horrible racist, and if your best friend is black, right? Well, that's actually pretty reasonable counter argument. Like, well, I clearly don't hate black people because a black person. So what they do, the left, and this kind of, again, stems from critical theory. This is social justice warriorism, stems from critical theory is, oh, watch. The racist is going to trot out his black friend. That's what racists do. That's what they do, right? That's the normal thing, right? Let's see. And so people get afraid to do it. But guess what? That's not what racists do. Racists don't have black friends. But they just say that's what racists do, so that then you're afraid to do it. And they just take something that is, are you telling me? Watch. He's going to say that the government doesn't need to provide free school, but should create bomber airplanes for Air Force. Watch. Yeah.
Because we know Hitler had a couple Jewish poker buddies laying around just for that kind of thing. Every good racist has a couple good black friends.
No, they handle the money.
This is what the left often does, and and that stems from taking something that's normal or heteronormative in society and immediately assuming that that's incorrect. And the left will take things that are perfectly reasonable for you to say, or perfectly reasonable for you to feel, or perfectly reasonable for you to substantiate or believe, and just preempt it by saying that is, insert racist, sexist, homophobic. And people have become so scared. And this is on college campus. They've become so scared. They're afraid to say things that these are truths that we know to be self-evident. I hope that we see that done away with. And that's why we do it with Donald Trump or Bill O'Reilly. That's why we do it with conservatives. Well, we got to make fun of. That's comedy is pretty liberating in that sense. We got to be consistent. We got to question the why. And we can do so while still acknowledging and being honest about, the inherent biases that we have. They don't need to be separated. And I think that stems from a lie, again, that comes from the left, where you're inherently altruistic if you're being completely nonpartisan. Well, that was a good example. That happened under Barack Obama. Remember, all of a sudden, when Barack Obama was president, the same people who were forwarding pictures of George Bush next to a chimpanzee, all of a sudden, there were PSAs about civility. About let's be civil. And civility became the virtue above all other virtues, above honesty. And now we see, the virtue above all else is we have tradition, we have precedent when it comes to a Supreme Court nominee. Again, this is just trying to challenge a status quo, or whatever people see as normal, or whatever people see as healthful or productive. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's right. And if nothing else with this program, I hope that you see we try to be honest about it, and we constantly use the Socratic method. We try to give you the tools to be able to make these judgments for yourself. I don't want this to be the only show that you watch. Frankly, I don't want the pressure, and I also don't think that you'll be as informed as you would be if you set to your favorite tabs Huffington Post, Salon.com, Slate. That's what I've got. Most of our news comes from liberal sources on this website. You'll look at our overlays. That's not we reverse engineer our stories and try to find liberal stories. We get almost all of our news from leftist sources because we constantly want to be aware of what they're thinking. And that's why we're able to ask and zone in on the questions that shine a light on it. Again, that's the Socratic method. It can only work in the presence of truth. We can only use leftist sources for comedy to point out how absurd it is if there's truth. The Socratic Method requires truth. Comedy requires truth. And we don't want to be the only place you're watching that does either of those things. So please, do me a favor as you move forward this week. Set HuffPo to your favorites. All the things you hate in the world, I want you to read about them, and I want you to read about them from people you hate most in this world. Then get back to me next week and see how that Socratic Method works out for you. See you then, Mug Club members.